Chapter 996, Nether Undead. Incarnation of disaster, source of plague, hell horse. It has only 3 legs, symbolizing disease, famine, and death. Its dark body emits a foul, fishy stench, while its head is a ghastly white skull. Helsing summoned it, and it let out a shrill neigh before wrapping itself in an endless cloud of venom and charging towards the Mirage Dragon in the sky. The Mirage Dragon roared and belched out dragon fire. However, the venom wrapped around the Hell Horse was like a huge wave. In such an environment where the toxins were almost endless, Helsing's combat power soared. Instead of being at a disadvantage against the Sky Dragon King, he seemed to have an advantage in controlling the situation. The dragon and the horse began to fight fiercely. The Mirage Dragon's dragon fire spit out easily tore off half of the Hell Horse's body. However, the stinky venom that splashed out also corroded the iron-like shell on the surface of the Mirage Dragon. The Sky Dragon King's eyes became more and more cautious. Such a terrifying toxin, even if he had an iron body, he definitely did not want to touch it. So he chose to use long-range attacks to take the initiative. With a roar, the sky was filled with spherical lightning that rained down on Hirschstein. But Hirschstein was unruffled, reaching up to press a button on his arm. Click! 2 rows of small shoulder-mounted guns popped out of his shoulders, and they began firing at the lightning spheres in the air. Boom! 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 The special material of the miniature shells also had a special effect on supernatural energy. Although the lightning spheres were fast, his combat suit was equipped with an intelligent combat system that could lock onto targets for attack. In a sense, this was a low-end version of precision shot. Helsing's hands went down, and the pool of poison at his feet began to surge due to the rain. A huge poisonous dragon soared up into the sky and attacked the Sky Dragon King's body. The Sky Dragon King's face turned green. Helsing's method was obviously meant to disgust him. He opened his mouth wide and a raging dragon flame spewed out, quickly evaporating the poisonous dragon. But at this moment, there was a change on the other side of the pirate group. The Calamity soldiers were frozen in ice by Bailien. Bailien thought that the problem had been temporarily contained. However, he did not expect that the Calamity soldiers would directly initiate a self-destruct. As their bodies exploded, they turned into a sky full of thick, foul-smelling venom, as well as a murky green poisonous mist. There were no mutants with wind attributes among them, and the only person who could suppress the poisonous mist was not in front of them, the Sky Dragon King. So soon, someone else was infected. Any contact with the poison would cause their crude battle suits to corrode. And the poor-quality gas masks could not possibly withstand Helsist's poisonous mist for long. Once the purifying substances began to lose their effectiveness, all that awaited them was death. The gap between the ragtag army and the regular army was completely different levels in terms of weaponry. Helsist, however, looked completely indifferent, and did not react with any joy or smugness. He was good at using poison, and he was in such an environment. As long as his opponent was not particularly strong, 100 against 1 made little difference to him. Especially when it came to bullying the weak, he had no match here. Billy the Kid needed to reload his bullets after killing someone. But here, his ammunition was endless. Although the Sky Dragon King saw the miserable state of his subordinates, there was nothing he could do to go back and support them at this time. Facing an opponent of Hirsch's caliber, any distraction could cost him his life. But how was he going to win? The Sky Dragon King was also caught in a huge dilemma. His greatest strength was his ability to fight close up, and in the ocean, with the body of a Dragon King, he was also exceptionally powerful. But this guy in front of him made him not want to get anywhere near him at all. But just as the Sky Dragon King hesitated, he suddenly felt his vision waver. A feeling of drowsiness and fatigue suddenly engulfed him. The Sky Dragon King opened his eyes wide. What was that? He stared at Hirschstein, and his body instantly backed away hundreds of meters. Then he growled, "When did you poison me?" The abnormality in his body made him immediately react, realizing that he had been poisoned. However, Hirschstein did not answer him. The answer was actually not difficult to find. The Sky Dragon King's methods could only resist tangible toxins, but not intangible ones. The Hell Horse was a poisonous beast created by him using his own stomach fluids. As the carrier of the plague, every cell in Hellesheim's body contained lethal toxins. The reason why he wrapped himself up tightly and wore a gas mask was not to protect himself. He was protecting others. Otherwise, anyone who came into contact with him would be poisoned and die a painful death in the shortest possible time. And when the Mirage Dragon of the Sky Dragon King tore the Hell Horse to shreds, the deadly toxins on its body spread into the air. They entered the Sky Dragon King's body with each breath. HLSYT took off his gas mask, revealing his face, which had been distorted by the toxins and looked like a ghost. It was a face that was hard to describe in words. The entire face was pale, like a corpse that had been soaked in water for half a month. There was not a single hair, and the flesh around the lips, nose, and eyes had been corroded clean. The flesh on the face was twisted, and the facial features were like building blocks randomly put together by a 3-year-old child, randomly placed on a face. "Slaughter, you ghosts of the netherworld," he said, and opened his mouth and spat out a large pool of disgusting mucus. Fine needles poked out of his combat uniform, piercing his skin, and then brown blood flowed out. The liquid flowed into the pool of venom at his feet, and in a moment it dyed the pool a rich dark brown. One by one, the venomous monsters crawled out of the pool of venom like nightmares, hissing and charging at the Sky Dragon King and his subordinates. The Sky Dragon King had been shocked by the scene before him. Even after experiencing so much bloodshed, had he ever seen such creatures that looked like demons from hell? The extremely uncomfortable feeling in his body was still spreading. He forced it to be suppressed with his powerful physique and supernatural powers, but a black stream of venomous blood still couldn't help but drip from the corner of his mouth. "We can't continue fighting. This battle is completely unequal." The Sky Dragon King realized this and decisively gave a tailspin in the air, running towards Bai Lian and the others. At this time, the rest of the pirates were not doing well either. Although they were not facing Hershit, but merely the disaster soldiers he created. However, the erosion of the toxin had already corrupted many of them into skeletons. Bai Lian used frost powers to condense into a magnificent frost armor, desperately resisting the erosion of the toxin. Chapter 997, Hidden Dragon in the Abyss. Hershit alone was enough to put the entire Sky Dragon pirates in a difficult position. Even the Sky Dragon King did not have a good way to fight against Hershit. He was a ruthless person, but recklessness had no value in the face of an absolute strength gap. The Sky Dragon King's eyes were cold and terrifying. If he risked the danger of being poisoned, he definitely had a chance to get close to Hershit and try to kill him. But now he was already exposed to the sight of the Columbia Navy. Even if he killed Hershit, he would still be doomed. After much deliberation, the Sky Dragon King made a decision. He used the Mirage Dragon clone to block Hershit's attack, then turned sharply in the air and ran towards the group. At this moment, each member of the Sky Dragon pirates was in particular torment. Some had already been poisoned, and half their bodies had been eaten away, leaving them looking like half-human, half-monster creatures. Without saying a word, the Sky Dragon King used his tail to pick up Vice Captain Bai Lian and fly away. "Lord Sky Dragon King, we haven't gotten on the cart yet," the other pirates cried out anxiously and in pain. But the Sky Dragon King paid no heed to their cries. In such circumstances, the weak mutants could no longer exert any influence on the battlefield. They had helped the Sky Dragon King get close to the Misty Valley, and they were all poisoned, so they would only be a burden. The Sky Dragon King was the leader of the pirates, ruthless and merciless. Useless subordinates would of course be abandoned without mercy. "Thank you for your contributions to the pirate group over the years." The Sky Dragon King only left this message before taking off into the air. The remaining pirates vented their anger by hurling insults. "Li Fengxian, you despicable son of a bitch. We'll go down and wait for you. You'll die for sure, you'll die for sure. You'll never get the source of God. But after the Sky Dragon King and Bai Lian left, they were even less able to withstand the encroachment of Helsing's calamity soldiers. Soon, accompanied by a chorus of screams, these people were all corroded by the virulent poison into a pool of pus and blood. Helsing looked at the Sky Dragon King and White Lotus as they disappeared into the distance, and had no intention of chasing after them. He calmly reported to the command center, "Two people have escaped, Li Fengxian, the leader of the pirate group, and his deputy, White Lotus. Trying to chase after the flying dragons in the sky would definitely be an irrational act." Helsing was not that stupid, and would never leave the ground, which was the most advantageous environment for himself. General Horn frowned upon hearing the report. "This guy is not that easy to kill." Lieutenant Colonel Crudy next to him said, "Even if he is not a mutant trained by the military, he still has a paper strength of 9,800 points in his ability index. If he is determined to escape, it really is not that easy to kill him." Her's hit was good at positional warfare, not pursuit warfare. General Horn took a lit cigar from the secretary next to him and took a hard drag. Then he said with some annoyance, "I'm afraid this guy will become a hidden danger to us on the battlefield later." He wasn't worried about the Sky Dragon King cooperating with the two major districts of the Huashu Kingdom. Because the conflict between the Sky Dragon pirates and the Huashu Kingdom was much bigger than with them. The Sky Dragon King took Bai Lian and left this area, and it was only after a long time that they landed in a quiet area. After Bai Lian jumped from the Sky Dragon King's tail to the ground, his body could not help but kneel down halfway. His face was pale and scared, and he covered his mouth with his hand and coughed heavily, soon spilling black blood from his mouth. The Sky Dragon King changed back into human form, and he took out a bottle of potion from his body and threw it to Bai Lian. "Are you okay?" Bai Lian opened the lid of the antidote and drank the potion. His face had a hint of blood in it, but he still looked very weak. Bai Lian struggled to his feet and apologetically said to Sky Dragon King, "I'm sorry, Lord Sky Dragon King, for troubling you." Sky Dragon King snorted, clenched his fists, and said with a cold glare, "Damn the Columbia Navy, after I did so much for them in the past, in the end they stabbed me in the back. It was all fake, in the end you are still the most reliable." In this battle, almost all the elite of the Sky Dragon pirates died. However, the Sky Dragon King was not too sad or sorry. In the beginning, he was also an insignificant fisherman who gradually grew into an overlord who dominated the southeastern sea. As long as he had enough strength, it would not take long for him to raise a team that was not weaker than the one he had at the beginning. After the end of the world, there were refugees everywhere, and a mouthful of food could gather a useful subordinate. As long as Bai Lian is still alive, it's fine. After Nerit died in battle, he was the only captain-level combatant under the Sky Dragon King. Talented people like this are not so easy to come by. After Bai Lian swallowed the antidote, his body was temporarily fine. He coughed softly and said, "Lord Sky Dragon King, next, we can't take any more risks. The mutants from Columbia have already appeared on the edge of the Misty Valley, which means that people from the other major powers have also arrived nearby. If we continue to advance, we will definitely encounter the enemy again." The Sky Dragon King looked at Bai Lian. Among the Sky Dragon pirates, although Bai Lian had powerful combat capabilities, his most crucial role was to act as a blank fan. He was very good at giving advice. Back when the Sky Dragon King first became a pirate and was competing with the heroes of the South China Sea, he did not have much advantage because he only had brute strength. By chance, he met Bai Lian, who had almost starved to death at sea. Bai Lian was from the southern part of the Huashu Kingdom, the same place as the Sky Dragon King's ancestral home. Out of this sense of kinship, he saved Bai Lian. Unexpectedly, Bai Lian used his intelligence to help the Sky Dragon King grow his power. The art of war was in his hands, and he played it to perfection relative to those pirates. Coupled with the scientific management knowledge he learned online, and with the Sky Dragon King's formidable combat power, the Sky Dragon pirates quickly emerged as a force to be reckoned with, swallowing up dozens of other pirate groups in the surrounding area. Ultimately, the situation in the southeastern waters was such that the Sky Dragon King was the undisputed king. Therefore, the Sky Dragon King particularly respected Bai Lian's opinions. "Bai Lian, what do you think?" Bai Lian lowered his voice and said, "If we fight them head-on, we don't stand a chance. We're at a definite disadvantage in terms of our intelligence system, weapons and equipment, and numbers. But we can wait." A sinister look came into his eyes. The Sky Dragon King's curiosity was piqued. Wait for what? For them to fight each other. Bai Lian said firmly, "They regard each other as their biggest rivals, and don't really care about us. We might as well hide and wait for them to fight first. By the time they're done fighting, we'll strike." This tactic is called the snipe and the clam fight, and the fisherman gains the profit. Chapter 998, You Must Know How to Disguise Yourself. After hearing Bai Lian's words, the Sky Dragon King nodded. His brief encounter with Hersheyist had given him a profound sense of the gap between him and the mutants of the major powers. His strength was not weak, but when fighting, the prerequisite gap was so great that it left him at a loss. If the person who appeared before him today was not a member of the Helllock, but two, I'm afraid that even trying to escape would be a luxury. Okay, I'll listen to you. Now we need to find a place to rest for a while. As a mutant with a strong physique, the Sky Dragon King could use the time to slowly expel the toxins from his body. As for Bai Lian, even if she survived thanks to the antidote, she would not be able to fight for a while. They had to lie low and wait for the battle between the major powers to break out. That was not hard to detect. The top mutant from the major powers had all reached the pinnacle of the Delta class. A battle between such people would affect an area of at least tens of kilometers. The Sky Dragon King would definitely feel that kind of fluctuation. 3 days have passed since Zhang Yi killed Vito Baldia. During these 3 days, he has not carried out another hunt. Instead, he has been lying low, observing the situation on the battlefield. After all, he killed a major general of the Infernal Chain. It is hard to guarantee that the Columbia Navy Command Center will not be so enraged that they will mobilize a large army to surround and attack Zhang Yi. So Zhang Yi found a deep basement, and after activating the Two Realms Junction, he sealed himself, Flower, and Lele inside, and lived there for 3 days. During those 3 days, he did not feel the crisis of being searched for and hunted. And Zhang Yi also regained his energy and improved his condition to the perfect level. So he decided to strike again and go hunt other mutants from the Allied forces. Zhang Yi reached out and touched Flower and Lele's heads. Let's go. 3 days is enough time for a lot to happen out there. Let's go join the fun. Meow. Woof. Zhang Yi teleported out of the ground with a cat and a dog in tow. During the battle, he had gotten to know the terrain of the area pretty well. The principle was actually very simple. Although Star Island was unable to be located via satellite due to the poisonous miasma and the influence of the special magnetic field, however, the areas that have been manually traversed can be mapped using an intelligent system. This is where the convenience of the mutant with extraordinary space abilities comes into play. He can quickly travel between major areas, so he has already obtained maps of a large part of the area. After briefly reviewing the situation, Zhang Yi said with a deep meaning in his tone, unconsciously, 10 days have passed. Now that I think about it, they must be close to the Misty Valley. Reaching the Misty Valley was not the end, but the beginning. Because everyone knows that everyone's ultimate goal is the source of God buried underground in the Misty Valley. It was no easy task to search for such an underground treasure in the huge Misty Valley. What's more, as the poison circle closed in, enemies would appear frequently around them. Fighting had become an unavoidable thing. Everyone had to be more careful. Zhang Yi opened the dimensional gate and said to Flower and Lele, "Let's go, we're going over too." The fish are beginning to gather, and it's time for the fishermen to get their guns out. Zhang Yi led the way with his cat and dog, and in no time at all they reached the area at the edge of the Misty Valley. He stopped moving, not rushing headlong into that terrifying area. Instead, he told Lele to scout ahead and see if there were any enemies nearby. Lele's nose was pressed against the ground, and he began to use his natural ability to capture the lingering scents in the air. In a moment, Lele suddenly pricked up his ears, his eyes glowing brightly as he stared in a certain direction. "Boss, there's something good." Zhang Yi asked curiously. "Oh? What is it?" Lele turned his head to look at him, his large paws digging into the ground due to his excessive excitement. "We've seen it before, that energy body." Zhang Yi's eyes shone. The companion body of the source? That was indeed a really good thing. Since Zhang Yi had encountered it, he certainly wouldn't miss it. But this time, he didn't choose to bring Hua Hua and Lele with him. Instead, he said to Hua Hua and Lele, "You just stay here, don't move." Hua Hua looked at Zhang Yi incomprehensibly. Although he didn't say anything, his eyes were a little surprised. His owner was too steady. This time, he didn't even bring him along and was going to act alone. At this time, Zhang Yi had already opened the Two Realms Junction and started to change his clothes. When Flower saw the combat uniform on Zhang Yi, his eyes went wide. "Master, why are you wearing the clothes of a Columbia mutant?" Zhang Yi said indifferently, "If you want to seek excitement, then go all the way." Yes, he was wearing the combat uniform of Baldia. "The people from the Allied forces have already set their sights on me. As soon as I show up, they will quickly determine my identity based on my personal characteristics. Those who can't beat me will immediately flee, and those who can wrestle with me will also immediately call for reinforcements. It's better to disguise myself so that they don't know my strength." A cat and a dog were the most obvious features around Zhang Yi. Apart from that, there was nothing else. Zhang Yi acted alone and changed his clothes. Even if others could tell that he was not a mutant from Columbia, they would not be able to figure out who he was for a short period of time. This short period of hesitation was enough for him to do many things. Lele immediately praised, "Boss is awesome. You are really very clever." Only Flower was speechless and muttered, "Is it really necessary? With your current strength, who on this island can threaten you?" Zhang Yi heard this and just smiled slightly, better safe than sorry. While Zhang Yi was making preparations, Lele noticed the direction of the Source Elves. At this time, someone had already appeared here. In the depths of the poisonous miasma, there was an area that was not surrounded by miasma. The misty moonlight here created a comfortable environment. A dozen source spirits were either sitting on the ground or lying on the top of the ruined wall, enjoying the melodious music and comfortably squinting their eyes and shaking their heads. In the middle of them was a large spirit, the mysterious creature with white fur and antlers on its head. It was holding a long flute in its hand and playing beautiful music. But this peaceful scene did not last long. A person walked out of the mist. He had long hair, his forehead was covered with a black bandana, and around his eyes was a smoky makeup look. When he saw the elf in front of him, he let out an exaggerated smile. "Ha ha ha, a source elf, and a large one at that." As expected, even the NPCs that appear when you come to the Misty Valley have become high level. Chapter 999 Medusa. The smoky-looking man laughed unrestrainedly, and his body leaned back exaggeratedly. At this time, not far from him, another person walked out. This person had red hair all over his head, and he carried a long and ancient-looking samurai sword at his waist. Seeing the expression on the smoky-looking man's face, he said coldly, "Die House, put away your problems. It's dangerous to make a lot of noise here." The man with the smoky makeup said somewhat resentfully, "I speak loudly because I am doing the right thing." The red-haired man shook his head helplessly. If it weren't for the fact that this guy was strong enough, he really wouldn't want to act with the other party. "Now, before anyone else finds out, put this thing away." The red-haired man stared at the large chinchilla-like creature, and a flash of fervor also appeared in his eyes. This guy's origin is equivalent to a high-level Delta-class mutant. When the two people appeared, the elves did not make a move. But when they appeared with evil intent, the big chinchilla's tune immediately stopped. The elves panicked and fled behind it. The big chinchilla's originally cute and adorable eyes suddenly became fierce. Heh! It opened its blood-red mouth and let out a somewhat shrill roar. A white crescent of light instantly swept out in all directions, and the surging storm of supernatural energy made the heavy poisonous miasma roll back hundreds of meters. The red-haired man and Smokey seemed to have been prepared for this, and they were unflustered. Powerful supernatural energy also emanated from their bodies, blocking the force of this impact. The creatures that accompanied the source of God were of very magical existence. They possessed extremely powerful life energy within their bodies. However, they could only rely on instinct to fight. That was why the man in the smoky makeup called them NPCs. They could be quickly killed by entangling themselves in a fight and simply watching their fighting style. Then they could obtain enough pure origin. That was something even captain-level mutants coveted. But before the two of them could make a move, they sensed an aura appear from another direction. Their gazes immediately became wary. They looked over there and saw only a slender figure slowly emerging from the thick poisonous miasma. It was a tall woman with a stunning waist-to-hip ratio and bust that were unique to Western women. Through her combat uniform, the two recognized her identity. Among the members of the Infernal Chain, there was only one woman. Codename Medusa. Crap, why is it her? The red-haired man and the smoky-looking woman couldn't help but frown when they saw the person approaching. They were in trouble if they ran into a member of the Underworld Chain here. Because this time, they had come to assist the Underworld Chain. The two sides were allies, not enemies. Everyone had discovered the source spirit, so it would be difficult for them to keep it all to themselves. Behind Medusa, the fog was steaming, and a huge, colorful figure was looming. When she realized that there were other people here, she was also the first to get ready for battle. Medusa Judy Christina, Supernatural Ability Index 9,600 points. Although her Supernatural Ability Index was not high among the members of the Hell Lock, she had an advantage that no one else had. That was a partner monster with a Supernatural Ability Index of 9,500 points, the Blood-Spotted Snake King. Yes, it was a highly venomous striped snake, not a python. Pythons are non-venomous and toothless, but the striped Snake King had the venom and fangs of a venomous snake as well as the body of a python. With this poisonous pet, Christine's actual combat power was on par with the upper echelons of the Underworld Chain. Christine spotted the two people in front of her, and the command center immediately gave them their information. These two are from the mutant unit Takamagara of the Neon Pelican Squad. The redhead is Amaterasu, and the guy with dark circles under his eyes is Susanoo. Christina knew that these two were from Neon and were allies, and a teasing look appeared at the corner of her mouth. She twisted her body and walked gracefully to the side. On the one hand, she maintained a safe enough distance from the duo from Takamagara, while on the other hand, she blocked the big chinchilla's retreat. What a coincidence, you guys are here too. As allies, I don't think we should fight over these source spirits, right? Amaterasu God Red Maru slightly narrowed his eyes. Of course, we are allies and should not fight at a time like this. Susanoo the female of the Great Tide said a little anxiously, we came here to help, and shouldn't the goal of the Lock of Hell be the source of God? Do you have to fight us over this? Christina gave a contemptuous smile, crossing her arms and accentuating her ample bust. Since it's a good thing, there's no reason to pass it up. Besides, the amount of divine source is limited, and not everyone will have the chance to get it. General Horn could see all of this from the command center. However, the Allied forces were not directly under their command. If they wanted to communicate, they would have to do so through the person in charge of Neon. General Horn thought about it for a while and decided not to interfere in this matter. According to their agreement, except for the source of God, which must belong to the Columbia military, there was no clear agreement on the other acquisitions. Therefore, Daisen Kumaru and Umi Shiojo were fully eligible to obtain the source spirit. However, even if General Horn didn't say anything, on such a battlefield, they also needed to look after the face of the Columbia Navy. Christina said with a smile, well, since everyone found it, then in the interests of fairness, let's split it 50-50. Each side gets half. Dai Jin Hongwan and Dai Chao Nv frowned, obviously disagreeing with this distribution. Dai Jin Hongwan said indifferently, there are 3 of us here, and you're taking half, while letting us split the other half. This is obviously unreasonable. To be honest, I think it should be divided into 3 equal parts. Christina snorted, and the blood-spotted snake king behind her, which was more than 20 meters long, opened its mouth wide and spat out a blood-red tongue. A scorching breath made the ice on the ground instantly melt, and the soil turned dark black. If you say so, how can my baby not be counted as one? Don't you agree, Miriam? She reached out and stroked the large snake's head, and the large snake, Milian, let out a hiss in agreement with Christine. The faces of both the great god Hoan and the sea-tide woman did not look good. To let their own pet monsters share this kind of good stuff like humans? This was a bit hard for them to accept. But suddenly, the person in charge of the Pelican organization on the Neon side said something to them. Daishin Hongwan and Hai Chao's faces changed slightly, but they understood that they were not on the same level as the Columbia Navy. If they fell out, they would only suffer. Chapter 1000, Daishin Hongwan. Daishin Hongwan helplessly made a compromise. Fine, we'll split these source spirits in half. The large chinchilla showed a menacing appearance, warning the humans. But the 3 of them didn't pay it any mind at all. The 3 of them teamed up and easily dealt with the creature that had been manifested from the source material. But before that, we need to clean up this place. Someone has come without an invitation. Upon hearing this, Daisen Hongwan and Daheko immediately understood what Christina meant. There were not just the 3 of them here. The blood-spotted Snake King turned its body and opened its mouth widely in one direction, emitting a piercing roar. A stench of fish spewed from its mouth, dispersing a large area of poisonous miasma in front of it. A figure slowly emerged. Christina's relaxed smile immediately changed when she saw the combat uniform. Huh. Because the person who had arrived was wearing the clothes of a member of the Hell's Chain. Frowning, she asked the command center, "You sent someone else? Is this a sign of distrust?" General Horn and the others were also a little surprised by the sight before them. "No, you are the only one still around here. That person is a fake, he is not a member of the Hell's Chain at all." A cold murderous intent flashed in Christine's eyes. A fake, was it? On the battlefield, it was not strange for enemies to sneak up in their clothes. It was enough to use optical camouflage. So in Christine's opinion, the other party was completely mocking her by doing so. "You want to die?" Christina said coldly. The huge king snake coiled beside her had bloodshot pupils. Sensing its owner's murderous intent, it exuded an oppressive aura of a ferocious beast. Daishin Hongwan and Hai Chan exchanged glances. Daishin Hongwan placed his right hand on his long sword, and both were ready to fight at any time. "What does this mean?" Daishin Hongwan asked. Christina said disdainfully, "Can't you tell? That's an imposter." After saying this, she shouted at the man, "Hey, you're a mutant from the Huashu Kingdom, aren't you? Sneaking around disguised as one of us, you're really crafty." Zhang Yi didn't show any expression of surprise after being discovered. He didn't expect to be able to fool these people with this outfit anyway. It was enough to disguise his identity. A glance was enough to obtain the basic information on the 3 people in front of him. Through Thor's intelligence, Christina's characteristics were too obvious, and the large snake indicated her identity. As for the great god Benemru, his red hair and the iconic samurai longsword also allowed Zhang Yi to recognize the person. Amaterasu, Medusa. As for the guy next to them, he should also be a member of Takamagara, so if I'm not wrong, he's Susanoo. Zhang Yi narrowed his eyes. The supernatural ability indexes of these three people were extremely high. Medusa Judy Christina had a supernatural ability index of 9,600 points, and with the assistance of her battle pet, the blood-spotted Snake King, her comprehensive combat power was even stronger. Amaterasu, the great god Benemru, with an ability index of 9,600 points. Susanoo, the great sea-tide woman, with an ability index of 9,500 points. If it were a one-on-one fight, Zhang Yi was confident that he could kill any one of these three. But right now, it was 1-on-3. Outnumbered, Zhang Yi would never put himself in danger in a situation like this. He smiled and raised his hand, saying, "Sorry, I seem to have come to the wrong place. Goodbye." After saying this, Zhang Yi quickly turned around and then ran towards the depths of the poisonous miasma. Zhang Yi's escape solidified his identity as a mutant from the Huashu Kingdom. Right now, there were 3 high-level mutants on the Allied forces' side. At a time like this, when they encountered someone from the other side who was alone, there was no reason to let him escape. What should we do? The great Taoist Hongwan narrowed his eyes and looked at Christina. I'd also like to ask the friend from the Helllock for a decision. Christina stuck out her tongue, which was scarlet red and much longer than average. She licked her lips, which were also a flirtatious bright red. Of course we can't let him get away. How about this, I'll capture these source spirits here, and you go after him. The woman from the sea snorted, don't take us for fools. If we go after the mutant, who's to say you won't just take the source spirits and leave? Christina turned to look at him, oh? And what are you going to do? As you say, if I go after the guy, I'll be worried about you taking the source spirits and running too. The great Daishin Hongwan narrowed his eyes. It's not that complicated. Maybe there's an easy way to solve this. He reached down and pressed the Kokugane Naginata at his waist. I'll go after that guy. You stay here and capture the source spirit. But I want an extra 10% of the source spirit share. Christina gave Daisen Kurenai a deep look. Amaterasu Daisen Kurenai, the existence known as the #1 expert in the Neon Mutant realm. Although he only had a supernatural ability index of 9,600 points, but on Neon Island, which had split into 2 factions and had been fighting non-stop, he was powerful enough to dominate. Christina nodded and said with a smile, since you've said so, of course I'll give you face. Let's do it your way. It was also impossible for them to argue too much here. Otherwise, the person who had escaped might have gone far away for good. In case he attracted more enemies, even the 3 of them would have a headache. Okay, I'm going. Daishin Hongwan said to Hai Chanf, keep an eye on her. Then he gripped the Guoguang Zhangzong in his left hand, stamped his feet on the ground, and the entire personage chased after Zhang Yi's escape direction like lightning. Zhang Yi ran very fast, but the air stirred with him, causing the poisonous miasma to roll violently. This was like a signpost, showing Daishin Hongwan the way. Dahin Hongwan's hand was on the hilt of his sword, his eyes focused and sharp. As the heir apparent to the Divine Dragon Heartless School, he could draw his sword with extreme speed. His Iato cuts, in particular, were so fast that they could deceive the eye. His heart was still, his breathing calm, his mind focused. Any movement in the surroundings would be captured by him. He wasn't worried about any tricks the person fleeing ahead might use. Because at such a distance, in close combat, he has never encountered an opponent. Apart from those guys from the Divine Pillar, no one can block his sword drawn from its sheath.